In a mansion of luxury, pain is quieter, but no less real. When power hides what the heart refuses to see, kindness can break through in the most unexpected places. One gentle act, and behind the mask of wealth, real tenderness erupts. What happens when a billionaire's heart is moved for the first time by a simple woman from a different world? Will a private struggle connect the disconnected, or is this just another fleeting episode in someone else's life? Watch until the end and discover what really matters: status, care, or connection. From the moment Jessica Mitchell arrived at the Rose Mansion, she felt the weight of walls, grand, immaculately polished but deeply silent. Marble floors echoed with the careful steps of staff. Family portraits watched over the halls, all perfect smiles and starched collars. Yet for all the house's luxury, it was a world with few true connections, its rooms separated not only by doors, but by invisible boundaries of rank and expectation. Jessica, a black woman in her early 30s, carried herself with quiet resilience. For her, this job was not a career dream, but a lifeline, a chance to move her daughter out of the cramped apartment they shared, to pay off old debts, to offer a whisper of stability. Here she was just the new maid, and she knew the rules. Keep your head down, work hard, don't get noticed for the wrong reasons. The house's master, billionaire Martin Rose, moved with the nervous energy of someone always on a call, forever 2 steps ahead of his staff. He was respected by investors, featured in glossy magazines, but at home his warmth seemed lost. His son, Alex, 8 years old, with searching brown eyes and words that came only when he felt safe, lived behind his own walls. Autism shaped his world: strict routines, favorite toys, and sudden storms of emotion when anything changed. Jessica observed all this. The other housekeepers kept to their tasks, rarely raising their voices. The nanny recited scripts about therapy and progress charts. Martin stayed mostly in the West Wing, working late or disappearing on business trips. Sometimes Jessica felt that the loneliness in this vast home was as thick as the carpets. Her first days passed in a blur of chores and whispered instructions. She had cleaned large homes before, but here, every window gleamed. Every silver tray had a history older than her family's time in the city. She tried to avoid mistakes, careful not to linger in rooms where she wasn't needed. She watched, listened, and waited for her place. Late one afternoon, she caught her first real glimpse of Alex. He was sitting alone, rocking gently on the edge of a window seat, a blue knitted blanket clutched in one hand. Jessica knelt nearby, polishing the woodwork, humming softly to herself, a lullaby she'd sung to her sister back home. She didn't look up or speak, but after a few moments she noticed the boy's rocking slowed. His eyes flickered toward her as if, for just an instant, something gentle and familiar had parted the lonely air. Dinner was always tense. Staff set the table. Martin appeared in tailored suits. Alex often refused to leave his room. Jessica overheard snippets. Martin's brusque concern: "Has the therapist called? Are his meds right?" met by the nanny's awkward answers. Sometimes shouts would echo from the hallway, doors slamming softly as Alex struggled with melting down, the grown-ups unsure how to help. Jessica felt for the boy. She saw patterns, remembered her own childhood caring for her neurodivergent sister, how simple changes could unspool hours of calmness, how a soft voice could bridge gaps that no diagnosis could explain. In the evenings, when her work was done, Jessica would call her daughter and urge her to finish homework. "Mama's doing her best," she'd say, hiding the exhaustion in her voice. Sometimes, as she walked from the kitchen to her quarters, she'd pause by the unused sitting rooms, listening to the quiet. In all this wealth, she thought, the hardest thing to find was comfort. And so, behind the locked gates, the Rose Mansion remained what it had always been: a house of closed doors, but not even the thickest wall can keep out every tremor of compassion. Jessica didn't know it yet, but the smallest acts, an old song, a gentle hand, were about to open a crack in the fortress around her, around Alex, and around a man who thought money could protect a heart from longing. The next morning in the Rose Mansion carried an edge of tension Jessica couldn't quite name. She moved through her chores with extra care, her every action observed not just by discreetly placed cameras, but by the unfamiliar hush of the staff. Those marble halls seemed to echo louder as she dusted and swept, as if the house itself was holding its breath. Jessica had noticed small changes after those early, quiet moments with Alex. Mr. Rose, Martin, was always polite, but his glances lingered now, more searching, almost wary. Though he never found time for long words, occasional questions seemed to test her perspective. How did she like the work? Did she feel safe? Was the staff treating her properly? Jessica sensed that Martin watched not just for mistakes, but for something else. Perhaps a hint at what made her connect with his son in ways he could not. Soon, the routines shifted. One morning, Jessica found a rare antique watch left beside a vase in a room she usually did not clean. Another day, loose bills sat atop the mail pile by the door, conspicuous in their placement. The other maids traded knowing glances. An older woman quietly warned, "Sometimes Martin likes to see who can be trusted. Be careful where you step." The message was clear. Jessica realized she was being tested, not only for honesty, but for her place in a hierarchy where trust was rationed like air. Her hands sometimes trembled as she picked up towels or wiped counters. She thought often of her daughter, of nights spent counting coins and promises to never give up, no matter the odds. Those hopes became her armor. She reminded herself of things her mother used to say: "Your dignity is yours. Never let anyone buy it or take it away." The pressure built through the week. Jessica noticed that Alex, too, became more watchful as the adults around him grew unsettled. He would peek out from his room, following her with intense, silent eyes as she worked. She continued to hum to herself while she cleaned. Old church hymns, lullabies, a gentle background to the mounting anxiety in the house. On Friday evening, Jessica was asked to organize a bookcase in the study. Martin's office, usually closed, was wide open. Something gleamed from inside, a drawer left out, and just beyond it, a black wallet thick with bills. For a moment, Jessica's heart pounded. Was this another trap, or was it simply a man's careless forgetfulness born of stress? She paused at the threshold, remembering the stories she'd heard, the side glances, the silent expectations. The easy way would be to take what was there, or even to just fail to report it. After all, nobody would know. But she stepped inside, gathered what was needed, and carefully left the wallet exactly as it had been. Afterwards, she mentioned it to the butler. "Mr. Rose forgot something in his desk. Thought you'd want to know." Late that night, as Jessica finished her shift, she caught sight of Martin peering through a security monitor in his private lounge. His face, usually unreadable, now looked surprised, almost relieved. That evening, Jessica lay in bed, replaying every moment. She wondered whether passing the test would change anything, or if things would remain as they always had. Her on the outside, doing her best in a house that only let her in when it needed something she alone could give. But as she drifted off to sleep, she remembered how Alex had smiled at her that day. Maybe, Jessica thought, that smile was its own reward, a fleeting sign that trust, once given, had the power to open even the heaviest doors. Weekend mornings at the Rose Mansion were usually choreographed down to the minute. Meals delivered on carts, blinds adjusted to match Alex's needs, staff whispering in the corridors. But this Saturday, a storm blew in, upending the routine. Wind rattled the windows, rain hammered the glass, and the mansion felt even more cut off from the world outside. Jessica woke early. the weight of the past week's hidden tests still pressing on her. She straightened her uniform, called her daughter to check on homework, and started her rounds, polishing silver, arranging flowers, her thoughts restless. She still wondered if she was truly welcome in this house, or just another pair of hands expected to fade quietly into the background. Mid-morning, as she passed the den, Jessica heard quick footsteps and a muffled cry. It was Alex pacing in front of the bookshelves, arms wrapped tightly around himself. His blanket was missing. His favorite toy car had somehow disappeared. The routine, his anchor, had been broken. The nanny rushed in, flustered, and tried to coax Alex to sit or to take deep breaths, but his panic only grew. Martin arrived next, tense and tired. "Alex, son, you need to calm down," he pleaded, standing just outside his son's reach. Jessica lingered in the doorway, uncertain. No one noticed her, not until Alex's cries grew sharper and he began to rock, tears streaming down his cheeks. Jessica remembered with a sudden ache her little sister's meltdowns, how words rarely helped, how presence and touch could sometimes bridge the gap. Carefully, Jessica approached. She knelt several feet from Alex, making herself small and non-threatening, her voice low and gentle as she started to hum an old melody, a lullaby from her own childhood, full of softness and steady rhythm. Alex didn't look at her, but his rocking slowed. The storm outside faded to a background whisper. Even Martin and the nanny seemed to hold their breath. Jessica continued to hum, then, carefully, slid a soft pillow toward Alex, an object for anchoring, not a demand for contact. She didn't reach for him, but trusted the song to do its quiet work. After several long minutes, Alex's sobs faded. He picked up the pillow, clutching it to his chest, and finally glanced at Jessica with wide, grateful eyes. The spell was fragile, but real. Martin watched, stunned. He set a careful hand on Alex's shoulder, nodding wordlessly to Jessica. For the first time, gratitude flickered across his face, gratitude mixed with something sharper, a longing for connection he couldn't voice. The staff murmured in the halls about what they'd witnessed. Some were dismissive. Just luck, she got lucky, while others eyed Jessica with wonder, even envy. The nanny whispered, "I couldn't do what you did. Thank you." The rest of the day, Martin watched his son more closely, quieter than usual. As evening fell, he found Jessica in the kitchen cleaning up. "How did you do that?" he asked abruptly, not with his usual commanding edge, but as a father desperate to understand. Jessica hesitated, searching for words. "Sometimes people don't want advice, they just want to know someone is there. I grew up looking after my sister. Her world was different, but music helped her find peace." Martin nodded, looking away. "Thank you, Jessica, truly." As she left for the night, Jessica felt something shift, slight, perhaps, but undeniable. In a house built on unspoken walls and silent hierarchies, a fragile bridge had formed, a bridge made not from shared background, nor from wealth, but from the oldest, simplest bond, kindness in the moment it matters most. The week following that stormy Saturday brought surprising calm to the Rose Mansion, at least on the surface. The air felt softer between the staff. Routines settled back into their precise rhythm, and Martin seemed lighter, more present, stopping to ask about the day or simply pausing in the halls to watch his son. Yet beneath this new tranquility, deeper currents shifted between Martin and Jessica, between Alex and the staff, and within Jessica herself. Martin's gratitude, once muted and polite, began to take on new color. He sought out Jessica in small ways, asking her thoughts about Alex's needs, leaving notes on the kitchen counter thanking her for extra care, even pausing to listen when she suggested changes to Alex's daily structure. Martin's efforts were clumsy at first, but gradually a working trust grew between boss and employee, an acknowledgement that expertise and love sometimes come from places that defy credentials or status, Still, not everyone looked kindly on Jessica's growing influence. Whispers drifted through staff rooms, jealousy, suspicion, the old order resisting change. A few staff argued she was overstepping. The nanny, now more reserved, kept her distance, and some of the older maids wondered aloud if Martin was being too generous by letting a maid weigh in on family matters. Jessica felt the strain. She worried that her presence, once invisible, had become too prominent, a source of both comfort and conflict. But every evening Alex would find her, sometimes offering a favorite toy or simply drawing near as she cleaned, his trust quietly reaffirmed. When her own daughter called, Jessica spoke in hushed joy. "I think I'm making a real difference here, baby, maybe for all of us." The real test came late one Tuesday night. A thunderstorm rolled back in. Alex, thrown off by the flashing lights and booming thunder, awoke screaming. The nanny, panicked, called Martin, but he was unreachable at a business dinner, his phone lost in a swirl of meetings and noise. Jessica, awakened by the commotion, rushed into Alex's room. The boy retreated into a corner, sobbing, unable to process anyone's words. Jessica approached as gently as before. No raised voice, no commands, just singing that same old lullaby, letting the melody settle like a shield around him. In desperation, the nanny called Martin on video chat, passing the phone to Jessica. Jessica placed the phone in Alex's hands, speaking softly to Martin on screen. "Alex needs you to see him, not just hear him," she urged, moving the camera so Martin could see his son's face. Martin, wide-eyed and shaken, said Alex's name, trying not to cry. Slowly, with Jessica's voice anchoring the space, Alex calmed enough to clutch the phone to his chest, tears still on his cheeks. In that silent moment, the three of them, Martin, Jessica, and Alex, were bound together, worlds apart yet intensely connected. The next morning, Martin returned home and found Jessica in the kitchen. He didn't order or question, he simply thanked her, his voice raw. "I never saw my son that safe before, not until last night." Now, for the first time, Jessica was no longer just the help. In the eyes of the boy, and now his father, she was both guardian and ally, a quiet anchor in a home learning, at last, to unbolt its doors. In the days after that stormy night, the dynamic inside the Rose Mansion shifted beyond recognition. Where Jessica once walked with cautious silence, she now moved through hallways with a newfound sense of belonging, a careful, earned confidence. Martin and Alex's bond, too, became different. Small but meaningful rituals began. Martin lingered at the breakfast table, listening for Alex's concerns or letting him pick out the day's music. Alex, still reserved, now sought out his father and Jessica, showing them drawings or offering a shy smile, a victory greater than any business deal. But such change did not come without friction. Not all staff welcomed this new closeness. The former quiet order, where roles were fixed and boundaries clear, was broken. Some whispered that Jessica was changing too much, too fast. Others envied her influence, questioning how a housekeeper could know more about Alex's heart than experts with polished degrees. Jessica noticed the tension. She kept her head down, letting her work speak for itself. Yet she never hid her kindness, pausing to help the gardener's daughter with homework, comforting the anxious cook about family troubles, or bringing an extra cup of tea to the nanny, even when their words were stiff. Her determination was quiet but relentless. She believed the walls between people could be softened, if not erased, by daily, gentle effort. For Martin, this was a time of soul-searching. He spent evenings recalling his own lonely childhood, a place of glass and marble where feelings were tucked away for the sake of success. Watching Jessica with his son, he began to question the rules that made him powerful in boardrooms, but powerless in his own living room. One night, he stayed up late, reading about parenthood, autism, and, at Jessica's suggestion, even listening to the music she used to soothe Alex. The house, once a stage for ritual and etiquette, was transforming into a place where laughter sometimes rang out, where tears were not hidden, and where achievements were measured in hugs and shared moments instead of accolades. But perhaps the most profound change was in Jessica herself. She found her own walls falling, her reserve slowly melting into hope. She allowed herself to imagine a future where her daughter could visit this home without fear or shame, where her skills and warmth would be valued not out of pity, but out of true respect. For the first time in years, she believed that her kindness was making a mark no money or privilege could ever buy. One Sunday, the family, Martin, Alex, and Jessica, walked together in the garden. The sun filtered through the leaves, Alex's hand in Jessica's, Martin at their side. For a while, nothing was said. All that needed to be felt was in the quiet unity of steps in soft grass and hearts beginning to heal. The Rose Mansion no longer echoed only with lonely wealth, but with the slow, real sound of walls coming down, and of a family, in every sense, finally finding its shape. Morning sunlight spilled across the Rose Mansion's garden, dappling the grass where Alex, for the first time in a long while, played without anxious glances over his shoulder. Jessica watched from the edge of the terrace, hands folded, a quiet pride in her chest. She thought about everything that had changed since she first set foot in this house, how doors that once closed her out had slowly opened, not from keys or commands, but from the smallest, most persistent gestures of care. After breakfast, Martin invited everyone for a walk. It was a simple outing, no agenda, no appointment waiting, just a family, staff, and a boy who finally felt safe enough to let go. Alex reached for Jessica's hand as they stepped onto the path. The touch was instinctive, trusting. Jessica squeezed gently, steadying him as they walked beneath the old oaks. Martin observed this simple bond, humbled. He slowed his step to match Alex's pace, letting himself feel the moment without rushing. For the first time, he allowed himself to feel vulnerable. No mask of authority, no businesslike detachment. He looked to Jessica, gratitude and something softer in his eyes. They reached a bench by the pond. Alex inspected stones and feathers, Jessica humming under her breath, Martin sitting nearby, silent, letting the peace settle in around them. After a while, Martin spoke. His voice shook just a little. "Jessica, I've spent a lot of my life thinking success meant control. That being a good father was about providing, not feeling. But I see now, I see because of you, that what my son needed was something I forgot how to give. You reminded him, reminded me, you're not just staff, you're part of our family." Jessica blinked, breath caught between tears and laughter. She remembered years of being unseen, of jobs where her worth was measured in hours worked instead of hearts touched. Now, with Alex leaning gently against her and Martin's words washing over her, all those invisible walls dissolved. For the first time she felt home, truly home. Alex looked up at his father, then at Jessica. He didn't speak, but smiled and nestled closer. In that moment, nothing else mattered. Not wealth, not titles, not the old lines that used to divide them. From that day forward, the atmosphere in the Rose Mansion was irreversibly different. Other staff noticed it too. Laughter grew less guarded, mistakes weren't met with fear, and kindness became not just tolerated, but celebrated. Jessica's daughter was welcome to visit on weekends. Alex introduced her to his favorite hiding spots in the garden. The mansion, once an island of lonely opulence, became a living home. Its greatest beauty found not in the marble floors or costly paintings, but in the quiet, unbreakable threads of trust and love that now tied everyone together. And so ended the story that began behind closed doors, a reminder that in places of privilege and solitude, True family is built not by wealth, but by courage, understanding, and the quiet miracle of hearts opening to one another.